Pardon the interruption, but I'm Michael Wilbon on assignment in Chicago for tonight's Cavs-Bulls game, Tony.
I'm Tony Kornheiser on assignment. Come on, stop it.
I'm sorry.
Stop
Just because
it.
you're asleep doesn't mean others don't see me dutifully and late into the night on SportsCenter.
You're there because the Bulls are there. You're not there on assignment. You're there because you want the Bulls to win.
I want the Bulls to win. Whether I'm here or not has nothing to do with it.
Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Paul Pierce speaks too soon, Alex Ovechkin loses again, and Corey Kluber doesn't get a chance to set the strikeout record. But we begin today with the Patriots' rebuttal to Ted Wells. Point by point, they refute the science. They challenge the lack of hard evidence against Tom Brady, who today filed an appeal of his 4-game suspension. They even say the equipment guy who called himself the deflator in text messages did so because he was fat and trying to lose weight. The rebuttal is 20,000 words long. Wilbon, does it help or hurt the Patriots' case?
Tony, I don't know whether it helps or hurts the Patriots case. I think that if you're talking about the case, with public appeal, sort of the court of public opinion, I don't think it matters. I think that people may be like me, in which they've almost reached the point of saturation with this entire story. Look, this is a sexy story, okay? And so you can talk about it every day for a while. But then when we start to get the lawyers involved and all they do is go back and forth on what they're going to do next, that's when you lose me. What I think is far more important today as it relates to this story is the poll. The ESPN, ABC poll where they go, 500 plus people. We could say it's a small sample size, but like 80% of the people think that Brady's punishment is just fine, but also 80% of the people appear to think that quarterbacks all over the league do this. I find what people are thinking about this story more important than the lawyers.
Yeah, I don't much care about the polls because I don't know how scientific the polls are.
Probably not scientific at all.
And if you're Tom Brady and you're making an appeal, the polls don't matter. The appeal is what matters. What I found interesting about the rebuttal is that they went after the science. They brought in a Nobel Prize-winning chemist, and he refuted what the Ted Wells report had to say, and they go after the fact that there's still confusion as to which officials took the measure of the footballs and the deflated quality and stuff like that.
We're talking about minutia. You think most people care about the minutia?
I don't know. I don't think most people care about it. I found it interesting. I also, at the same time, I couldn't believe that they actually said of the guy who called himself the deflator in what I thought, Mike, were humorous texts. I mean, I thought Ted Wells got that wrong when he said that they were angry.
Certainly sarcastic.
Yeah, I thought it was frat house humor. But the Patriots are saying that the guy is fat and he wanted to lose weight. And I thought to myself, that's so stupid that it may be true. Because these guys are smart lawyers. Why would they release that? They had to know that people would look at that and say that's insane.
Listen, Tony, what we know is Brady's going to appeal.
Yeah.
Now we're at the point of this daily, bit by bit, drip by drip chatter. Wake me when we get to the part where they either uphold or deny Brady's appeal, or when we find out whether Goodell's going to rule on the appeal or hand it off to somebody else. Yeah. Those details, I will start to care again.
20,000 words. That's a lot.
That's come on, seriously? So let's move to actual sports, please, right this second. You stayed awake to watch an ecstasy as Paul Pierce put your Wizards on the verge of a 3-2 series lead with that three-pointer with 8 seconds left that caused him to look at the Atlanta bench and say, series! But then you also watched in agony as Al Horford snatched that rebound from Nene and gave the Hawks an actual 3-2 series lead. So John Wall looked good in his return last night.
He did.
Don't you think the Wizards have a real shot of holding on tomorrow night in Washington, then winning Game 7 in Atlanta?
Yeah, Paul Pierce's comments notwithstanding, I do think that Washington has a chance. And the thing you take away from this is John Wall played, and he played pretty well, and he came out of the game apparently unhurt, like he's okay. Look, only a couple of things have to happen, Mike. Wall got 15 points last night. He only needs a couple more in a tight game like that. He's been averaging 17 in the playoffs, and then they win. He had 6 turnovers. He's been averaging a little over 3. If you cut him down to his average, they're going to win that game. When you look at Atlanta, they are not overwhelming. They are not frightening. When Wall is there, these are even teams. So, yes, I give them a real chance to win those games.
Tony, I do too. And it's not like the Wizards have so much in the way of championship pedigree. Oh, wait, Paul Pierce. But Paul Pierce is delivering. I don't care. When he said series, he had done his part.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, Pierce hit another shot. My goodness, this guy's coming up clutch. I think they can win because of Wall and Pierce. And Tony, I think that Beal, who had that great game that the Wizards lost in Game 4, I think Beal's on deck for another great game, too. So I think the Wizards can do this. I'm like you. Atlanta has come back, and they look like a nice team.
That's right.
Not even a potentially great team. And I think the Wizards must sense something. You can't believe in moral victories when you lose a game in the playoffs. This is as close as you come, I think.
Look, last night, Nene, if he got a body on somebody, I mean, look, Horford made a really good play, but if Nene gets a body on somebody, they're going to win that game. Like he got a body on people in Game 5 when he cleared out the whole side so Pierce could take a shot. The problem with the Wizards so far is they've had no production at all from two guys they really depended on off the bench, Otto Porter and Drew Gooden. The last two games, Mike, they played 94 minutes. They have 16 points, and they're 5 of 27.
Yeah, they need to go home. They got to have them tomorrow.
They're close.
They
what
are.
I mean?
It's even series.
All right, Wilbon, you're in Chicago for Game 6 of the Bulls-Cavs series, where the Bulls are again facing elimination at the hands of LeBron James. Pau Gasol is expected to play after missing 2 games with a bad hamstring, and Joakim Noah says, quote, "We're going back," unquote, referring to a return to Cleveland for a Game 7. Do you share his confidence?
Tony, I didn't yesterday, but I'm starting to share it. Sometimes you're around a series and around teams, and you get a sense of a level of determination and their ability to make an adjustment after a loss, which starts with just recuperating, the spirit recuperating. And I think the Bulls have done that. I think tonight they will probably put up their best game of the series and take it back to Cleveland. I'm not going to go against LeBron James at home in a Game 7. But first things first, somebody can get a sprained ankle, stuff happens. What the Bulls have to do is play and not have 8- and 9-minute droughts where they can't score. If they can avoid that, I think they win Game 6.
I mean, I can see them winning Game 6, but if the question is, do I share Noah's confidence? No, I don't. I don't share that confidence. I mean, what is Noah going to do to win the game? He's averaging 5 points a game. If Derrick Rose had said, I feel very confident, even though I've just gone 0 for my last 11, I would look at it differently. They're certainly good enough to win this game, but as you say, Mike, I don't know how they go back and win in Cleveland. And I need to ask you this. All of this swirl around Thibodeau, all of this stuff for months now that he was going to be fired, and in the last week or so that they're going to try to trade him to New Orleans. This cannot be good this can't be good for the group dynamic, can it?
Tony, I don't think it could, but let me say this. I mean, because the first thing, you think is, my goodness, at some point this wears on a team.
Yeah.
And it can wear on you incrementally, Tony, so you make a great point. But I will say this. While this is newsy outside Chicago, Tony, this has been going on in Chicago for the entire season. I mean, the beef, and management and Tibbs, and they have not commented publicly on it, so you don't have that. But it's there. It's undeniable. It's talked about every day in Chicago for 150 days. So I don't know what effect it has. But you know what, Tony? If they can't rally around each other and win one game against a guy they hate, LeBron James, who's been their rival, who's been their tormentor. Well,
he beats their brains out. He's the best player in the league.
He does, Tony. He does. Not so fast with moving away from Washington last night.
No, here we go.
A little more agony
Here
to
we
discuss from last night. Your Capital suffered a crushing, heartbreaking overtime loss at Madison Square Garden. Alex Ovechkin had guaranteed a win in Game 7, and he scored his team's only goal, but he didn't count on Henrik Lundqvist making 35 saves, as he does every May 13. This is the 10th time the Capitals have blown a 2-0 series lead and 2-game series lead, and the 5th time a 3-1 lead. Tony, is this more about Ovechkin's personal failure or Lundqvist's mastery?
Let me just go back into your words for a second. It's not a crushing defeat. It's an annual defeat. This happens all the time. And it's not about Ovechkin, and it's not necessarily about Lundqvist. It's about the Capitals. It's about this franchise. The National Hockey League has been in business for 98 years. The Washington Capitals have been in business for 41 years. That's less than half the time of many more teams in the league. And yet, they have blown 10 playoff series when they've been up by 2 games. That's more than any other team in the history of the sport. What does that tell you? What?
Tony, it's bad. I mean, look, I identify it's cubbish. It's so bad. I mean, but you wait a minute. Don't say this wasn't heartbreaking. You live in Washington, D.C., and you have become a turncoat and turned on all your New York teams, including the Rangers, to root for all the Washington teams. And within 14 minutes last night, the Wizards and the Capitals go boom. I feel bad from 700 miles away.
Right, and you know what I did? I went to sleep. And because I knew
tried
when that
to prevent you from going to sleep by calling your house.
Look, when
and
that
you
got
bailed
to
on the
overtime,
Capitals.
Mike,
That's so lame.
It happens. I've called them choking dogs for a reason.
I know.
I mean, and the Rangers are a better team than they are. But when you go up 3-1 in a series, and you give away five, and you give away 3 games in a row. I will get to Ovechkin. Ovechkin has terrible numbers, though. And you and I both agree that he played well in the series. But here are his numbers that are scary. He's the only multiple MVP in hockey history who's not won a Stanley Cup. And if he wins...
conference finals.
Never to the conference finals.
Never.
And if he wins another MVP, which would be 4, that's equal to the total amount of playoff series he's ever won.
Yeah. But wait, are you telling me this is not heartbreaking? This is heartbreaking. How did this not? Come on now.
I'm telling you, it's like the chocolate fountain at Golden Corral. It's perpetual. It is. How do you like that? Corey Kluber, the reigning American League Cy Young winner, was off to a terrible start. He was 0-5 with a 5.04 ERA. That's bad. But last night, through 8 innings, Kluber had given up just 1 hit. He'd struck out 18. And that is as many as any man had struck out through 8 innings ever. But Kluber didn't get the chance to go after the record of 20. He was taken out by third base coach Brad Mills, who was running the Indians after Terry Francona got tossed. Wilbon, shouldn't the Indians have left Kluber in to go for history?
Tony, throughout most of my life following baseball, I would have said yes. But you know what? And I know Kluber's not as young as all these young guys who wind up having to have
He's 29.
surgery. He's 29 years old, yeah. And so that was sort of, you say, well, he's not really a Tommy John candidate at this point in his career, probably not. But, Tony, with the injuries being suffered by pitchers now, and he's just sort of getting himself untracked. You mentioned how bad the beginning of his year has been.
Right.
Why not just go out on a high note, save your arm a little bit, don't go out there and throw another 22 pitches and have issues the next start. I'm okay with him being taken out.
Let's look at the people who've had 20. Kerry Wood had 20 and had terrible arm trouble, and I know you're aware of that. But Roger Clemens and Randy Johnson pitched 100 years each.
Yeah, he did.
They didn't have terrible arm trouble. To me, if this was a no-hitter, they would have left this guy in, because they left Tim Lincecum in a couple of years ago, throw 148 pitches, something ridiculous like that. And yet this is a much greater achievement. If you got to 20 or 21, he was averaging more than 2 an inning. I would have left him in, given him a shot, and then
do we know if he begged? Do we know if he begged?
Don't know.
I mean, I know Francona was tossed, but Francona had to be involved in decision-making. There's cell phones everywhere in the ballpark. Tony, if he just acquiesced and said, okay, then I'd say, okay, definitely now. If he stood his ground and said, hey, Skip, leave me in there.
113 pitches, and he's never had arm trouble, and he's 29.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. Coming up, what's the word to describe what the Warriors are doing to the Grizzlies?
And Mike Trout does more Mike Trouty things.
You see that play? You see that throw? Whoa.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Time for the game they made just for English majors. Did I ever tell you I majored in English? Wilbon, what's first?
No, never heard that.
The Warriors look blank after last night's win.
They look restored. For the second game in a row, they made 14 threes. For the second game in a row, they appeared to be cruising. They won this one by 20. The other one they won by 17. Klay Thompson had his most productive game. He had 3 threes. He had 21 points. Mike, it looks now like Memphis might have taken a step back. And much as you look at Chicago with the ability to win Game 6, but maybe not Game 7, I think that Memphis could win a Game 6, but I would not bet against Golden State at this point. Now, they look like they figured out what they were doing wrong and fixed it.
And, Tony, that's why my word is ambitious. they looked like not only did they figured it out, game 4, they just had to sort of center themselves. They had to gather themselves. But game 5, they look now like they're going, okay, wait a minute. We are the number 1 seed here. We're a team that can beat everybody in this league. Here's how we do it. And it looked like they played with some confidence.
Yes.
And I think ambition, and they see the Clippers out there. The Clippers about ready to clinch tonight. And I think they're ready to roll now, the Warriors are.
Next.
Harrison Barnes has a blank groin.
He has an elastic groin. You have to look at the split he does. I mean, if he didn't go to the hospital, need surgery after this, he's never going to need it. He goes down on the floor like James Brown. James Brown, the singer, not James Brown from CBS, but he gets up like James Brown from CBS and JB, you know I love you. But that looked terribly painful. If that had happened to me, I would be out for a year.
You probably would. Tony, last night I think in Lifetime, Charles Barkley just said, that boy is 22 to get up from that split, and that's why he's got a youngin's groin.
Okay.
You got to be, how long? He was like Gumby. I mean, it really looked like, forget 22, like he was, 7 or 8 years old, the way kids fall all the time and bounce up like nothing happens, and it makes old people like you and me wince. Youngin. I mean, Harrison Barnes is still a young guy, even though he's been in the league, 3 or 4 years now. Good for him that he is a youngin because he can continue. He continued to play last night. We presume will play tomorrow.
That hurt me watching it at home.
You did.
What's next?
Mike Trout's catch and throw were blank.
They were Mazian. I mean, I know everybody remembers Willie Mays turning his back, catching it this way, then turning around and throwing home. But he also would come in on a ball and make a great throw. He was a great, great player. And you look at Trout. You look at him come in and throw an absolutely perfect strike to the plate, and somehow the umpire originally calls this guy safe, and it was overturned on review. Mike, honestly, I think we're getting to the point where Trout and Bryce Harper are going to take over the game.
Well, I think kind of Trout's already done that, Tony, and I'm going to acknowledge Mays. I think the 3 greatest outfielders to me that I ever saw play, and I mean defensive outfielders now if we rank them, Mays, Clemente, and Griffey. And I'm going to sort of give a nod to the older generation and say Clementian. That's my word. For the same reasons, Tony. I mean, the arm. I think of Clemente with the arm. He might not have been quite the glove man that Mays was. Mays was back on balls probably better than anybody. But to make that catch and the throw.
Great throw.
And to get it pinpoint like that, it's just Clementian.
Next.
Last one. What happened to this vendor was blank.
It was propitious. 10 seconds before, this is just another guy in an orange shirt holding a tin box full of hot dogs. Then the ball hits him on the bean, and now everybody knows him. He's the envy of all the other vendors. Everybody's singling this guy. He's not going to be in right field tonight for the game. He's going to be behind home plate in a Diamond Club. He's going to be serving Merlot. He's going to get $10 tips from rich people. This changed his life for the better. It was propitious.
If you're a rich person, you better be giving up more than a $10 tip. I don't know what that says about you. But,
$10
Tony,
is bad for one glass of wine?
Tony, it's altering. Like, you know how John Travolta in that movie Phenomenon, he goes outside, he gets hit by a ball in his head, he staggers, and he winds up having just incredible amounts of information he can process, high levels of intelligence. So it's altering. This guy won't even be a vendor. He might be a scientist. He might cure something now because he's been hit in the head.
So in other words, you're saying for your Kia Royale, you're tipping 50s? Really? My performance was
There's no
nifty.
Kia Royale at the ballpark.
Let's take one last break, but still to come, Bryce Harper's ejection actually helps the Nationals.
You should give up at least a 20. And the lousy Sixers are sending Nerlens Noel to the draft lottery. Is that a recipe for awkwardness?
Well, when he's coming into a restaurant, people must smile. He's dropping 50s and 100s.
I don't get crazy.
One round of drinks.
ESPN Radio, bringing you directly to the biggest events in sports.
Center field, well hit, Hunter back, out of here!
From opening day of baseball,
Throw to the plate, safe at the plate!
right through the World Series.
For the 3rd time in 5 seasons, the San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
Whether it's LeBron, Chris Paul, or Kevin Durant, when the NBA tips off, ESPN Radio is right there when a champion is crowned.
We have a new world champion, the San Antonio Spurs.
postseason arrives, ESPN Radio is your home for the new college football playoff.
The college football playoff first national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
The biggest events in sports can be found right here on ESPN Radio.
Happy time, people. Happy 26th birthday, Rob Gronkowski. The Gonk was in the news yesterday, vying with Odell Beckham Jr. for the cover of the new Madden football game. The Gonk finished second, but after Beckham breaks his leg, as always happens to cover boys, the Gonk can assume the role of cover boy.
You've now got a player breaking his leg because he's on the cover of this thing?
Yeah, doesn't that happen? Don't they always get hurt?
Well, they can have a bad season, not to get hurt that badly.
Not so happy anniversary, Steve Nash. On this day 8 years ago, he got hip-checked into the scorer's table by Robert Horry. That led to Amari Stoudemire and Boris Diaw leaving the bench area, and that led to their suspensions, and that led to a 61-win Phoenix team being eliminated from the playoffs.
Two teams that got hosed in the aughts, Tony. Those 2007 Suns by that David Stern ruling and the 2002 Sacramento Kings, they got hosed too.
That betrays Bryce Harper. Harper ejected in the 7th inning yesterday for arguing a called third strike. 2 innings later, Michael Taylor came up in Harper's spot with the bases loaded and jacked one out, giving the Nats a 9-6 win in Arizona. This provided the only moment of joy in Washington, D.C. yesterday.
Yeah, but Tony, it was a regular season win. I know they're hot now, but again, the Caps, you're going to tell me it wasn't heartbreaking?
Heartbreaking, crushing, and annual. No errors today. Step off. I'm doing the hump. Here we go to the big finish.
Please,
Brett Favre told Fox he doesn't think Tom Brady was cheating. Will that be influential?
Maybe, but there'll be a lot of other opinions out there. We'll slowly get one by one. They could be influential too. Nick Saban says he hates to see the college football playoff diminish attention formerly given to the other bowl games. What?
Stop it. Just stop it.
Go away.
Nerlens Noel will represent the 76ers at the draft lottery. Does that make sense?
No, because if they win, they'll draft one of the big men and throw Nerlens Noel out. That's what the Sixers do. That's their move. Rockies, 11 straight losses. Can they beat the Dodgers tonight?
I'll be brief. No. Last one, Rockets and Clippers, Game 6. Do you think the Clippers will close this out?
I think Chris Paul and Blake Griffin have come too far, Tony, in their careers to let this opportunity go. I think they will close the Rockets out at home.
We are out of time. We will try and do better the next time, and I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. Check out the PTI podcast on iTunes.
Speedy recovery out there for Ed and Chan. Get well soon, and good night, Canada.
Two of baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals. The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.